learn from my old ways of doing things new. I hate what I love, but I'm trying, man, it's true. I'm fighting every day in my mind through and through, please.
I'm your host, John Legacy J, and this is The Breaking Point. So, one thing that I've noticed, especially with religious folks, is they always want to throw things away and they'll be like, you can't talk about that. That's new age. You can't talk about this. You can't talk about that. And today we're talking about frequencies and vibrations. And I know the first thing when people see this is, oh, Lord, what is he going to talk about? This has got to be some type of merging new age stuff with Christianity, but I'm not. And actually, we sound kind of foolish as Christians when we just want to throw everything out as being of the devil when we don't understand it. Frequencies and vibrations are science. Who created science? God did. He did. He created it. He created systems and orders and how everything on this earth works. If you even look at the way animals are, they're programmed to be a certain type of way. God is brilliant. He is brilliant. This stuff just doesn't happen. Like, if you don't understand how it works, that's fine. You don't have to say that it's of the devil or it's not right because you don't understand how it works. Now, there are some things where you can go into some territory that's not, of God. We could talk about that at another time. But in itself, frequencies and vibrations, because frequencies are, well, we'll get into that. Frequencies are of God. He made them. That's how things function. As a matter of fact, well, I'll get to that later too. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I'm so excited about this because as a music producer, I gave you a little background on me and how I know a little bit more than the average person about frequencies. I don't claim to be a scientist or anything, but I started off when I was, as my dated 9-to-5 job, right? I started off as a cable installer. So as an installer, we had to learn about frequency ranges because every channel that exists that you turn your remote to operates on a frequency, right? And when certain channels weren't working, I might be dating myself here, but I started when things weren't always digital. We had analog, and we had to check each frequency to see, okay, why is this service not working? Why is your ESPN not working? And we look at that frequency and say, oh, something's going on there, right? So that's part of the video aspect. Fast forward, because I've been at the company for a real long time, I became a video engineer. So I got to study how these frequencies were grouped together. So we'd have like certain channels that were all grouped together within one frequency range. We called it a mux. And you put them all together. And if something's wrong within that frequency range, then all of those channels that are grouped together in that mux are bad, right? So I don't want to bore you with video engineering frequency stuff, but yeah, I was an engineer for video. And while I was doing that, I was learning video music production because I'm a music producer. So not even knowing how these things went hand in hand, it helped me to understand mixing music and finding certain instruments to sit in certain pockets because each one has its own frequency. And if you have one instrument that's one frequency and another one that has some of its characteristics, some of that frequency is bleeding into the other one, it's going to sound muddy. It's going to sound like it's clashing. You're not going to hear the music clear. And that's why some of these guys, you be listening to it, they be like, hey man, listen to my mixtape, listen to my music. You be like, man, this stuff sounds terrible because they don't understand their engineer, or if they even use one, didn't understand how to mix the music to separate frequency so they can sound clear. Right. So that's my little background when it comes to frequencies and such. And I mix my own music, even do a little mastering and stuff myself. So I have a general knowledge of how this thing works. So I want to get into this because, like I said, I want people to understand the importance of frequencies. I want people to understand how God uses frequencies and how it affects us. So I might do another video on this to go a little bit more in depth on how these frequencies affect us, especially in today's music and the frequency ranges they use and how it affects us as people. But let's start off. Are you gonna see me looking down because I wrote notes, man? I gotta stay on. I gotta stay on track on this one. I want to make sure I'm doing y'all right. All right. So frequencies and vibrations are science. We talked about that. God is the creator of science. The problem is the New Age movement has paired science with the celebration of self, which ultimately is the same mind of Nimrod and the people of Babel. Science belongs to God. Science belongs to God. People can claim it all they want and say, this is, but whatever. It belongs to God. I need people to understand that. All right. Everything vibrates and moves in circular patterns. For example, the circulatory system, right? The earth, the solar system, wheels on your cars, circular, right? And even engine components, etc. I can go on and on. But you have a belt in your car which operates on a pulley system. You have fuel pumps. You have oil pumps. You have water pumps. You've got all these things. Even your alternator. What does it do? This. It turns around in circles, circular patterns, right? Let's keep going here. So we talked about different systems in the body. The system that circulates blood and lymph through the body consists of the heart, blood vessels, blood, lymph, and the lymphatic vessels and glands. So even our bodies operate in circular patterns. So let's go into what a frequency actually is, because a lot of people are demonizing frequencies, don't even know what they are, and don't even know they use them every day, like your Bluetooth device, your Wi-Fi, your radio, even when you turn a light switch on, light has a frequency. We're gonna get into that later, because a lot of I'll just get to it later. I'd be so excited about this stuff, man. All right. Frequency is defined as the number of periodic oscillations, vibrations, or waves per unit of time. Let me say that again. Frequency is defined as the number of periodic oscillations, vibrations, or waves per unit of time. So that's why when church people, when you hear church people talking, they say we're waiting on a move of God. When God moves, things happen. Things happen. God, when he moves, things happen. And we're going to see when God moves, it causes vibrations that change the physical and spiritual environment so much that scientific phenomena happen and are yet still unexplained in the scientific community. So if you go to Genesis 1:1, it talks about, Genesis 1:1-3, it talks about the earth being void and God moves over the waters. What happened when he moved over the waters? Well, he gave the earth its heartbeat. Well, where do you see that at? Okay, so let me see. Let me go here. The earth has a frequency. It's known as the Earth's hum, which is between 2.9 and 4.5 millihertz. And scientists use special equipment to go down to the ocean to measure this, right? So scientifically, we see how there's a frequency associated there with the Earth's hum. There's also a frequency surrounding the Earth. We have to talk about that another time as well. So, what can frequency do? Frequency has the ability to heal, cause pain and pleasure. And it sends, frequency has the ability to heal, cause pain, pleasure, amongst other things. But when we look at even like when you get a massage, the vibrations that happen throughout that process, it causes healing. And you know that some people actually go through like sound therapy for certain body parts, for like their kidneys and things like that. If they're having issues, it's a thing. It really is a thing. All right. We see that even the frequency of God's voice has the ability to create and destroy just by what he says. And people, what baffles me sometimes is like the people who don't believe in God. they think they're so smart because they're like, well, if God is real, then why wouldn't he do this? Or why does he allow this? Or how come he can't do this? It's not that he can't do anything. It's not that he doesn't care about people either. You have to understand something. Like when people who don't believe in God put limitations on him, that's like Windows putting limitations on Bill Gates or Apple putting limitations on Steve Jobs. These are the individuals who created the programming. They can program whatever they want, but in order to keep a stable environment and in order to keep order, they don't intervene with certain things, right? Does that make sense at all? Like, in order for you to maintain order, in order for God to maintain order, he has to first create order, and he will not violate that order. He won't go against it. So, just like a programmer will create a program for a certain thing, they're not going to go in and just pretty much do whatever they want within that programming to violate what the purpose of it was. So, an example, I mean, it could be anything. Like you have a robot that's made you program it to, I don't know, serve somebody, right? And then you say, you know what? I changed my mind. I want to do this instead. That would just be chaos. You just keep changing things up. So God created systems, and He's not limited by the system. He does that to maintain order. So I just had to throw that out there, man, because some people they just think, well, God do this, or why won't He do that? I'm like, He can. He can do whatever He wants to do, but there's an order. And get this, the Windows computer and the Apple computers, they don't understand why they do what they do, and they don't understand the mind of the creator. They only have the capacity to do and learn what the creator put in them to do and to learn. And the problem is too many humans just want to know way too much, and they think that they got it, but you'll never understand the mind of God. We're not programmed to. And most people want to break their programming and think they can, but you can't. You're hardwired this way. Dogs are hardwired a certain way. Birds are hardwired a certain way. What do they do? Fly from north to south. We're all programmed to do certain things, and we can't. Problem is with man, we want to break that programming and be what we want to be, but you can't. You're limited to what he's given us. That's a whole different topic, but let's keep going with the frequencies here because I can. All right. So I was looking at this study from the Daily Mail. It was about how frequencies can manipulate the weather. So for some of you out there who think people have tinfoil hats on because they believe that the government can control the weather or the military or whoever, I mean, it's not far fetched. So I'm gonna go over some of the stuff that was talked about in this. The scientists use cloud seeding to increase the probability of rain. This is done in a few ways. So in this study, the team used a diesel engine to compress air at sea level that is then fired as sound at a cloud. Sound, frequency, get it? Connecting? All right, good. The sound was at frequencies between 50 and 160 hertz and at up to 160 decibels in volume at sea level. The sound, 30 decibels by the time it reaches the cloud 3,300 feet up, acts to vibrate the cloud. Vibrations, frequency, see? This causes smaller particles of water vapor to oscillate and merge. As the particles move faster and come together, they form larger water droplets that can fall as rain. So all the people saying, "Oh no, y'all over here thinking the government can do all this stuff. They can't do it. Only God is in control." This is science. They found a way. In their study, rainfall increased by 11 and 17% surrounding the experiment. Because so that's interesting. But we know if this study is out there that military grade equipment is far past this. So if they wanted to do it for whatever reason, they could. But the point is that frequencies, sounds, vibrations play a big role in how this whole earth operates. Even our brain waves are on frequencies. It's a big thing. So because everything is moving, everything is living. Moving is living, right? Um, that's why when you read in the book of Genesis where Cain killed Abel, it said that Abel was crying, his blood was crying out to God because there's life in blood, right? So it was moving, it's living, until it wasn't anymore. But let's just keep going. All right, scientifically, we are made of atoms that vibrate and emit energy. We humans made of atoms that vibrate and emit energy. So all this stuff when you hear people talk about energy vibrating and you're like, devil, devil, devil. Do your research. Study before you start saying all this stuff because it makes us as a Christian community look crazy as if we're negating anything that God has put out there as far as his systems and how things work. If you don't know, just say, I don't know. We don't be going out here just telling everybody it's the devil. So this is a quote from Nikola Tesla. And this is important because, as we know, he was an innovative person. You see how Elon Musk even um, was inspired by him with his company. So let's see. One of history's greatest engineers, Nikola Tesla, who invented the means to transfer and to distribute electricity over long distances, once said, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." The same holds true for the world in which we live, our interactions with each other, and indeed our interactions within. So, I'm going to cross over real quick. We're going to talk about music for a second. Um, the standard way that music is recorded, so music is recorded within a certain frequency. Here in the States, I'm not sure how it is overseas. I know here for a fact it's 444 hertz. There have been some studies, I'm not saying conclusively this is, exactly like what it does, but there has been studies that shows that 444 hertz is associated with some things as far as anxiety, anger, a faster heart rate. Overall, they're saying it being recorded in that uh, frequency is not good for us as humans and our well-being. That's what they say. That's what they say. Done some research. Of course, when it comes to the scientific community, you're going to find opposing viewpoints and different studies, and people are going to have their hypothesis about other things and that. But that's what they say. 528 hertz is looked at as a love frequency, and 432 hertz is looked to as calming. And that's typically what I record most of my music in. And then you got 444 hertz as well. Yeah, so as we see here, based on some studies, the 440 hertz is not really good for us with causing all these things, and that could I'm not saying could be the reason why so many people deal with anxiety nowadays, because everywhere you go is music. You on TikTok, we watch a video, what's behind it? Music. You on a reel, you on YouTube, everything you listen to, everything you watch, there's music associated with it. You watching a movie, music. You at work, most of these offices now, they play music in the background. You got music. So if you're hearing this music at this frequency that much throughout the day, it's no wonder why some of us may be dealing with anxiety and things of this nature, right? Anger, irritability, all those things. So that's just something to think about. Fun fact, when it comes to frequency ranges, the organ ranks number one. Some people will say the piano, but because the organ has so many other, the pipes and things like that, it says they have more frequency spectrum. But if you look at the organ and the piano, those are like your one and two. And if you look at most churches, what do they have in there? An organ and a piano. And why is that? Because playing different frequencies, as I stated before, can give different types of set. What's the best way for me to say it without sounding too churchy? It can change your mood. It can, we talked about the frequencies, the healing therapy with sound. So I believe that it was a godsend, like God knew what he was doing when, I don't know who the first person was who brought these instruments in the church, but I know that having the organ and having the piano, having the widest frequency range, it's powerful on a scientific dynamic and a spiritual dynamic when we pair that with the prayers and what we're praying for. And when the musician can hear God and he's telling them, hey, play these keys, and you're praying for healing, or you're praying for someone to you're praying against depression, you're praying against these things, and that musician can hear from God and he's saying, hey, do this, do that. That's why it's important in churches not to just hire people because they're good at playing. I'm gonna say it again. It's important not to just hire people because they're just skilled at playing an instrument, because when you really understand frequencies and how they work and how God uses frequencies to do certain things, you need someone that's in tune to what God is saying at the time as they're going through like praise and worship services and things like that. So it's important that we don't just look at people based on, oh, they're good, but I mean, do they hear from God? Are they even Christian? Like, are they even saved? Are they really trying to live for God? Because yeah, you can have a good sound, but it won't get the job done. It won't pair with what God is trying to do in that environment. So it's important that we just don't get people just because they sound good. It comes to singing too, because your voice, there's frequencies in that voice too, right? And we see even in the Bible where David was with Saul. David was playing the harp and he had to play it to get the evil spirits away from Saul. So we see that there is a spiritual dynamic with music. And when we ignore that, we open ourselves up to all types of things, all types of spiritual, uh, I want to say like spiritual attacks, and we become vulnerable. So we have to be aware. It's not just music, y'all. Frequency. There's a lot of things that go on the back end. Some of us just like being surface level. We don't want to know everything, but then we complain about things in our life. So I challenge you to just go deeper in some of these things and learn for yourself. Um, so let's see. Classical music. It's a reason why as babies they say like play classical music. I remember when I had my kids, my my wife would play like Baby Einstein. So it would be like little it would be classical music for like the babies and stuff. So it could stimulate their minds. So what we listen to actually can help stimulate our mind or dumb us down. So it's important that we realize that as well. Um I want to get into some other stuff, but I'm almost at time, man. I try not to make these videos super long. So if you want to hear the next one I'm going to talk about, I actually got some scriptures that go with this. Like I'll leave you with this. And then next time we'll talk about the frequency of light, because Jesus is the light, right? So if there's a frequency to light, man, I want to go into this, but I need some time. I need some time. But because we don't have no time. But Proverbs 18:21, death and life is in the power of the tongue. So we see death and life is in the power of the tongue in the Bible, but we don't really look into what happens on the back end, y'all, the frequencies. Most people just say it's because what you declare, you invite things into your life and things like that. And that's part of it, but it's not as cut and dry. And, so when we say things, there's different frequencies assigned to our tone. Yeah, we talk, we're gonna talk again. We're gonna do another one on this. I'm gonna continue on this because I really want to get into um, the frequency of light, and I want to get into also how our music as a culture, like the trap music, all this stuff, how that affects us as well. As far as like the frequencies of the bass and all that type of stuff. Um, and then I want to tie all this in more to God, because as we know, God is the reason why all of this stuff exists. God is the reason. He's the one that put it into play. And I'm like, man, when you really look at it, like even most people don't even take the time to observe like their own body. I'm staring at my hands while I'm talking because like you look at how intricate we're made, and we look at like when we go and we look at a TV screen, we're like, wow, we can see all the pixels, and we're like, wow, this TV is just so amazing. Or if it's like a car that you like, and you're like, well, look at the detail. But nothing is more detailed than the human body here on this earth, and we've yet to figure it out all the way. Nothing is more detailed, and it just makes me in just awe of God's power and what He's able to do. Just like even my eyebrows, made so that sweat doesn't get in my eyes, and it's just like our hands. We all have unique fingerprints. It's really crazy. Just take some time and really look at that, and then tell me that our God isn't the God of science. You tell me that after that. But some of us aren't, and it's not. Some of us, it's not your fault, but you're not really educated and you don't know. You might not have been the best at school. You might not have been the best when it comes to researching, and you rely on other people to give you information. But stretch your mind a little bit and do some of your own research and see what you come up with when it comes to like science, like just understanding how things work. I got to do this again. This your boy John Legacy J. This is the breaking point. If this was interesting to you, it blessed you, make sure you follow, you like, you subscribe. I don't know where you're watching this at. I'm mainly on YouTube, but if this has helped you, share it to someone else. We're gonna get into more, and then also check my links down in the description there. I've got music, I've got products, my clothing line, God's Chosen One. If you're wondering who's chosen, you're chosen. Everyone's chosen. God has made you to be something in this life. Now, whether you decide to be in agreement with you being chosen by accepting Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, that's up to you. But once you acknowledge that, you have to understand that you're chosen to do some great things for God and His kingdom, and great things in life, not only for yourself but for others around you. And that's what it's all about. Again, this is John Legacy J. This is the breaking point, and I'll talk to y'all later.